So I hope that clears it up for some people who chewed my ass so hard that I can barely sit down right here. You almost have an ass fetish. You went at my ass so hard. Hey everybody, Yankee here. Today I want to do a couple of things in this video. First, I want to clarify what I meant the other day when I said there's two types of failures when it comes to handguns. Seems like I ticked off some people with that statement. Also, I want to talk about what is the most dangerous type of failure you're likely to face in a handgun, the one that presents a threat to your physical well-being. We've talked about what's the most common failure. Tonight, I want to talk about what's the worst one that you might run into. But first, I want to clarify, like I said, what I meant the other day when I said there are two types of failures. If you paid attention in that video, I didn't just say there were two failures. Some people took it that way, and they're like, oh my goodness, there's more than two types of failures. There's failure to feed, failure to eject. That's two right there, and there's more, so there's more than two, just going off. I guess I triggered their tism or something. But what I said in that video, if you pay attention, is I said there were two types of failures, not just two failures. There are correctable failures and there are catastrophic failures. And just in case you don't know, correctable failures is when your gun stops, failure to feed, failure to eject, whatever, and you, just with your hands, can get it going again. Maybe the magazine came loose. Maybe you have to re-rack it. Maybe you limp-wristed it and you have to cycle it again. Something like that. Something that you can get that gun up and fighting again right then and there. A catastrophic failure is something that takes your gun out of the fight. It's done for the day. It might live to fight another day. It may not be destroyed, but you're going to need some tools to fix it. Unless you brought those tools with you to the range and you have the things you're going to need, it's, done for the day. You're going to have to take it home, work on it, maybe take it to a gunsmith. And in worst case scenarios, your gun bites the bullet, so to speak, and is dead forever. Kaboom territory. So that's what I said when I said that there were two types of failures. Not there's two failures, there's two categories of failures. So I hope that clears it up for some people who chewed my ass so hard that I can barely sit down right here. You almost have an ass fetish. You went at my ass so hard. But as I said, that's what I meant, so calm down. Now, as far as the worst failures you might face in a gun, not the most common, but the most dangerous, potentially even injuring failures you can face in a gun. It's going to be the same for both revolvers and semi-autos. You probably wouldn't think that. And I was almost going to say for semi-autos that it would be firing out a battery. But, that's dangerous. But, not likely to get hurt because usually that happens when you're already shooting. So it's like, oh, an unexpected bang, but, not as bad as it could be. Now, I have seen sometimes where guns go like full auto, but usually no one's going to get hurt. And in revolvers, I was really kind of going back and forth on a couple of different things. But I kind of decided that just for the sake of unity, and because it is true, I think that the main type of failure that is the most dangerous in each gun is a squib load. If you're shooting and suddenly one round just wasn't loud enough and didn't really recoil, don't pull the trigger again until you've made sure that that bore is clear. You have to make sure that there is no obstruction in your barrel. Because if you pull that trigger again, well, that gun can suddenly become a hand grenade. And take some fingers with it. Maybe come back and take some other things too you don't want to be taken away from you. So, not that you want your fingers taken, but you know what I mean. So, squib loads are incredibly dangerous. Now, they're ammo related, and it's user error if you pull the trigger again. It's not something inherent in either of the types of guns. It's just a dangerous failure, and it's something you gotta pay attention to. If that round don't feel right, don't pull that trigger again. Take that gun, get it safe, inspect that barrel. Make sure there's nothing in there that shouldn't be. So that is, I think, with both guns, the most dangerous failure you can face. Although, I am going to add a caveat to this. With revolvers, there is a failure that can be more dangerous. And that is a round that cooks off slowly. A slow detonating round. If you look at the chamber of a revolver, if you're firing and you have a hang fire, that's what it's generally called. If you have a hang fire and then you pull the trigger again, might fire fine. But then if that round that you struck the first time goes off, you're going to be making an impact with the frame of your gun with that bullet. Because when it spins over to the side, it is right behind the frame. Now, that's not always the case in all guns. In some guns, it's really not that big an issue. You'd barely scrape the frame, or it hits the frame enough to damage the bullet, and you're probably not going to enjoy it, but it's probably not going to destroy the gun. But in some guns, like especially some 8-shot revolvers that are 8-shot 357 Magnums, that second chamber, when it turns over and it's one chamber off now, it's right behind the frame. If that bullet cooks off, if you have a hang fire there and it goes off after you've already advanced the cylinder, hand grenade territory once again. And especially since they're more powerful guns usually, you might have a more powerful hand grenade in your hand. So you have to know your gun and know what is the danger level of this gun when it comes to hang fire. And one type of gun that's really bad for this is single actions. If you look at a single action, when that round advances, where is it often at? Well, it's right behind the ejector tube, right behind the frame, if the frame itself actually molds to the ejector tube. So not a good place for a round to be if it's going to cook off in the chamber after it's not aligned with the barrel. Like I said, hand grenade. You might lose some fingers. So always pay attention. If you are shooting your gun, and for some reason it don't go off, or it does go off and it's just not loud enough and there's not enough recoil, don't pull the trigger again, especially not in a revolver. Don't do it in any gun, but especially if you pull the trigger and it doesn't go off, period, in a revolver, don't pull it again. That's dangerous. You don't want to put yourself in that situation. Either just assume your gun is out of ammo, or that you've had a round that didn't go off. Now, 90-something% of the time, probably 99% of the time, if your round doesn't go off the first hit, it's not going to go off. Or it'll go off on a second hit, but it's not going to cook off on its own. But it can happen. It's rare, but it's dangerous. I had a hang fire. Blew my eardrum out. Made my trip to California very uncomfortable. So, bad things like that can happen, so be very aware. And like I said, neither of these things, squib loads or hang fires, are super common. Squib loads are more common, especially if you reload. But there's still something you got to be aware of. Don't pull that trigger again. Now, some people are going to say, well, overpowered rounds are probably even more dangerous than them. But, you know, I can't blame the round for that or the gun for that. That's the problem of the person that loaded that round. And that's just idiocy, and you can't solve idiocy. They're just hurting themselves usually unless they're giving that ammo to someone else. So I'm going to stick to what I said. Squib loads are the most dangerous for both types of guns. Causes a lot of problems, but with some revolvers, you got to watch out for those hang fires. Even though they're rare, they can be pretty bad. Trust me, I found out the hard way. What I meant the other night when I said in a video that there's mainly two types of dangerous failure. For one reason or another. Reason? Correctable and catastrophic. Where was I? Forgot what I was saying. Got distracted. The fixing on it, as we say. That's, Can I not do this video?